Hello and most welcome to 1478 of the series. We are presently in the House of Palms, or as it's called in the local language in Swedish, Palmhuset. And we would today look into Indian languages and quantum physics. There's a most interesting connection between quantum physics and different Indian languages. Shortly, I could just say they don't take noun, especially the Algonquian family group. There is no adverbial structures, adjectives, propositions, and so forth. Western thinking, Western language is noun directed. The so-called nominal phrase takes the leading position in the sentence. And verbs and predicates are seen as adjuncts to the nominal phrase. I will begin with an article by F. David Peat. There will be a link in the description. So that you will be able to download it. David Peat is famous for collaborating with David Bohm, his namesake, and he's an excellent writer. The article is called Blackfoot Physics and European Minds. So I turn my phone off. Start with the introduction. Western science and European consciousness is contrasted with that of indigenous and traditional peoples. The metaphysics of the Blackfoot of North America and this vision of an animate world is examined. It is argued that something similar existed in Europe of the early Middle Ages. But that the secularization of space, time and matter paved the way for the development of science. A new science may be possible, which combines the current power of abstraction and analysis with an impersonal subjectivity. European consciousness dominates the world. As we move towards the next millennium, will this continue to be the case? In this article, I explore a radically different worldview, that of the Blackfoot of North America.
Og der sker ikke noget nogen steder.
And ask if their approach to society and the natural world has something of significance to teach us. Indeed, can the study of alternative ways of thinking give rise to a creative response within own consciousness? The initial statement of this article requires amplification and qualification. By European consciousness, I do not mean something confined to a specific geographical location, but rather a way of thinking and behaving that, while it did happen to develop within Europe, now has an influence across much of the globe. its seeds were already present in the Middle Ages, and its flowering resulted in secularizing of time and of space. The rise of science and the proliferation of technology. It transformed a society that had previously existed on trade and barter into the major force for expansion and progress that now dominates the world. One of the most dramatic products of the Western mind has been its particular approach to science. A discipline that, along with its associated technology, is by no means as objective, neutral, and value-free as we once believed. And I would call that the myth of the objective thought. We mentioned that in a previous lecture, 1476, by Hans Reen and Heidegger. They are all emotions or moods, if you like. They do specific things. Western science expresses an entire metaphysics about the way we relate to the world. society and ourselves. It's very good. Western science, main commentary is the complete, dominator in all thinking and the effector of all good. The sine qua non for effective thinking, if you like. Western science has its triumphs, yet we are now aware of the hubris connected to its success. To take one example, our technology acts somewhat like a virus, which, when it enters a society, transforms its entire structure. Export a sack of seed, a bag of fertilizer, or a canister of pesticide to the third world, and one transforms an entire way of life that may have survived largely unchanged for hundreds or even thousands of years. An animate world. In recent years, I have often heard the boast that for the first time in human history, we all share the same story of creation, and that today children all over the world are being taught the same facts about nature. Western science has become the yardstick of truth, and measured against it, the stories and traditions that have sustained ancient cultures are dismissed as myths, superstitions, and old wives' tales. However, measured on the scale of the world's civilizations, this European mind is comparatively young, and its science a mere infant. Go back a millennium, and time was experienced as a cycle of renewal. The seasons, the rhythms of daily life, and the church's calendar were all in harmony. Space was united with time, and its interior was as rich as the yolk of an egg. Aristotle's natural philosophy taught that each body has its natural place. Medieval society was a world in which each person was in his or her proper place. They were in the world, my comment, and they had Lokalisation, Befindlichkeit. our modern notions of the rights of the individual were far less important than the well-being of society as a whole. In such a world, everything was alive. Rocks, rivers, trees. Nature was constantly at work. And it fell to human beings to act as her midwife. Metals grew in the womb of the earth, and the sacred work of the miner and blacksmith brought this labor to completion. In many ways, the reality of this world was far larger than the scientific reality we inhabit today. I shorten the introduction a bit and I go to page 566, subtitle An Alternative Vision, which is the third paragraph. I'd like to easily introduce you into Indian language. An alternative vision. My test case is that of the Blackfoot people. A nation who once occupied an area of the North American plains east of the Rocky Mountains, but now live in reserves in Montana and reservations in Alberta. By tradition, they were hunters of buffalo, traveling with their teepees in the summer and wintering along river banks. Their language is a member of the great Algonquin family, which runs from the Cheyenne in the central US plains through the Blackfoot and up into northern Canada with Ojibwe and Cree, finally into Naskapi of Labrador. So I go to Blackfoot Reality, the next subtitle. Blackfoot Reality. What is the nature of Blackfoot reality? Certainly it's far wider than our own, yet firmly based within the natural world of vibrant living things. Once our European world saw nature in a similar way, a vision still present in poets like Blake, Wordsworth, and Jared Manley Hopkins, who perceive the immanence and inscape of the world. Our consciousness has narrowed to the extent that matter is separated from spirit. and we seek our reality in an imagined elsewhere of abstractions, Platonic realms, mathematical elegance, and physical laws. These are things we've been discussing, my comment here, a lot during the 1500 episodes. Platonic realms, I think that rings a bell. Mathematical elegance and symmetry. And of course the classical laws. Immutable and unreal. The Blackfoot know of no such fragmentation. Not only do they speak with rocks and trees, they are also able to converse with that which remains invisible to us, a world of what could be variously called spirits or powers, or simply energies. However, these forces are not occupants of a mystical or abstract domain. They remain an essential aspect of the natural material world. And here I think there is a very good line. They remain an essential aspect of the natural material world. Here, there is no division between the spiritual and the material. Subject often treated by Heidegger. According to Heidegger, this division is a mistake. It comes from applying the objective mood to the world and ourselves indiscriminately. It is not so much that the Blackfoot live in an extended reality, but that our own Western vision had become excessively myopic. This wider reality embraces flux, movement, change, and transformation. The creator of the land, Napi, the old man, is also a trickster, one who is constantly changing form, traversing boundaries and upsetting preconceptions. For example, what the West takes as the aberration of multiple personality becomes the acceptance that an individual is not a fixed thing, but fluid. Whose multiplicity is reflected in the way a person's name keeps transforming during their life. This is actually something that happens in Blackfoot language. The names are changed. And I clearly come to think about quantum physics here, where existence, one of these very, very strong illusions, if you like, was casted out first by quantum physics. The idea that the atom is unrelated and unchanging, and that it still has fixated properties, unchangeable and immutable. The fluidity, the flux, disappears in this fixated mood of believing or being hypnotized by an image that there are fixated objects out there. No matter you want to call them atoms, molecules, or things before thinking, or things before acting. Of course, one comes to think about chaos theory here too, where the stability lies in the oppositions, in the flux, something that F. David Peat's friend called the hollow movement, the originator. Renewal requires an act of sacrifice. And it is these sacrifices, these actions of participation, performed each morning when the sun rises, each year at the sun dance, which help to maintain the great circle of renewal. Thanks to these acts of renewal, time within the flux turns on its axis. Season follows season. Circling time is always the same, yet always different. Always renewed. Let me give you an example of the differences in these languages. One is a word that was noted by an 18th century Jesuit priest, and he wrote it down as hippiskapigoka iagusit, as translated, a healer sings to a sick man. But modern linguistics have determined it was actually a verb. Expressed the act of singing and included as modifiers one who sang and one who received the song. What these languages have is inclusion. They include what in Western languages is fragmented. Disparate. I think a great example of that is the transitive verb in Western languages. I see the cup, for instance. Seeing is transitive. It demands an object, and indirectly or directly also a fixated ego, I. This is less fluid, and it creates two things with a distance at the same time. And also in connection to quantum physics, I, thanks to this grammatical structure, has now nothing to do with the cup. Neither does the cup have anything to do with me. This, as you can see, is foundational for classical physics, where the observer has no participatory role whatsoever. He's just a spectator. I am affected, if you like, by the objective, disjunct, separated, fragmented object, which is before language. It's not very hard to see how the language have given rise to this disjunction. It also goes into what we perceive as time. Past and future become also separate by their instigation in language. In the Algonquian language group, there is no past, present, nor future. It is a flux, rather. Time does not become a static, linear thing. Which also disconnects us to our history, to our past, where all knowledge is situated from what has happened before, what Heidegger called Geschichte. You can call it tradition, the accumulation of doings, of learning. The disjunction between observer and observed, signifier and signified, has been shown in quantum mechanics to be utterly, originally, foundationally the same. Something called complementarity. I would say that quantum physics did the same as Blackfoot and related languages do and have done for millennia, bringing the things together from where they originated, healing understanding, making for focus. I'm going to take a pause there and we'll have some comments from my colleague and some discussion. Check the time as well. So I will make a short summary, so halfway through after Peat's article, and I see many parallels and connections in lieu of what we've done before. As I said, almost 1500 episodes. There are fractality, case theory, quantum physics, and actually all the way back to first centennials with Arkady Plotnitsky. Who takes up William Blake and how he tries to defend the real against the darned Newton. It is clear, you can feel his despair. He, himself an artist, felt the disjunction clear, the fragmentization, and how it, just as Peat said, it was like a seed that grew into our civilization, and also in modern time has entered into other civilizations. And the sense of disjunction and separatedness, where the world is, as Thomas Nagel says it, is taken from a view from nowhere, disembodied, unreal and transcendental. Non-related. I would say otherworldly in a not a positive sense. Otherworldly in the sense of you will not be able to reach out and put it in your knowledge. This is what Peat later on calls a map of understanding. And I would say there are three philosophers who point to this tendency out in Western thinking tradition. First is Jacques Derrida, who looked at logocentrism, and then Heidegger, who checked into the Vorhandenheit and how we misconstrue reality in that specific, unusual mood. And also Ludwig Wittgenstein, who showed that for what, that is the words, the function, the role they have in our world is first and learned first, as we know from neurology. And then later comes a long process of identification and possible objectification. But the object is never first. It is after, and it's a refinement of the use. And I think this is very close to the participatory language of the Blackfoots and all of the Algonquian tribes of language. Maybe a comment from my dear colleague here, Kalle Lundahl. He's patiently been waiting for me. Put you up here for... There you go. I will just check here.
So I will repeat something from page 567. The creator of the land, Napi, the old man, is also a trickster. And this made me think of the exchange between Niels Bohr and Einstein. Einstein said that God is does not play dice, and Bohr said that don't tell to God what he should do. So, okay, in quantum physics, God can be a gambler. with the Blackfoot, he can be a trickster. It's not so big difference really. And then other thing from the same page 567 is, and here I will actually criticize Peat. No one believes, that is, no Blackfoot believes that the pipe ceremony actually causes the sun to rise. Have they said that? I remember that when we visited Stockholm in 2021, a lecture about David Hume and the relation between the sun and the rooster. Not the rooster, yes, the rooster. Does the rooster cause the sun to rise or not? But in quantum physics, yes, in a way, because the rooster is the person who sees the sun. Not the person, but the one who sees the sun and makes it rise, so to say. So I would like to, if I could, I would ask a Blackfoot Indian person, do you think that your pipe ceremony or your, in some way, causes the sun to rise? I'm almost certain that they would never ask such a question. So I give it back to you, Hans.
Yes, directly I agree. Intuitively it sounds quite astonishing that they would ask such a question. And it also shows, well taken point there, Kalle. Also shows this is what quantum physics does. By mere observation, which can be likened to the pipe in the ceremony, mere observation is even less than a pipe, I would say. Everything happens. And it's also good, that shows how ingrained this structure is. I see the cup, something that we know is even quite new in Western languages. And the later development with definite article, the cup, like it's completely independent from me. From that, it's not hard to get to the perfect cup, the Neoplatonic or Platonic view. That Platonism would not really be a possibility in a language that doesn't have the nominal phrase. When I studied linguistics, when they came to these languages, they actually put in nominal phrases, used their own system even to take apart the Amerindian languages and say there is a hidden nominal phrase. Something often done by Noam Chomsky and his followers. You can also say that this is unavoidable, but Blackfoot language points to it might not be the case. It can be more open. And I also like the parallel with the trickster, the old man, the nappy. There is a connection to creativity here. Somewhere in this fixation of objects, this, let's call it unnatural tendency, creativity gets fixated. Learning becomes learning the objects and their relations and their properties. It becomes very James Lockean. And in the end, creativity comes to a standstill. There's no longer a trickster, and there are no longer, as most people today perceive, miracles. But they are still absolutely vivid in other language cultures.
Trickster sounds negative. I wonder if Blackfoot would have. Trickster sounds very negative. I wonder if it seems like Peat's own term.
No, yeah, it could have negative connotations. Yes, indeed. Mild, I would say mild negative connotations, but yeah, you have a point there. I will continue with the text. And I will read that of Carl Jung that we also mentioned before in the series, who had extended conversations, who two quantum physicists, Werner Heisenberg and Paul Pauli. In the last paragraph on page 567 before the subtitle, The Map in the Head. That very thing that Kalle here mentioned and we spoke about, the connection, is in quantum mechanics called synchronicity. Carl Jung chose to term this synchronicity his a-causal connecting principle. It was present earlier in the West in the form of alchemy. In which external material workings and internal transformations mirror each other. This constant movement towards balance and harmony within the flux is the essence of the Blackfoot world. These connecting details we have lost, or they lose out in the language, which makes all happenings unrelated. I mentioned earlier that the construction of present, past and future makes for these hard things to realize, and therefore quantum mechanics had to infer a new word, retrocausality, within the present system to help an understanding for this connectivity. In a way, doesn't it feel pretty terrible that your thinking and your inner life has no connection at all with what happens? I continue with the map in the head. an expression of the Blackfoot's relationship to a reality of rocks, trees, animals, and energies, is expressed within what many Native Americans call a map in the head. This map is a way of knowing where one is in relationship to the land, its history, society, and all the living beings of nature. For the Blackfoot, this map begins with Napi's body, which is traced out in the landscape in the form of rivers, buttes, hills, and valleys. It is also the track left by Napi as he walked across his land. The map in the head is songs sung and the stories told around the fire at night. It is the relationship of the Blackfoot people to their world. The map in the head is a form of knowledge, but knowledge for the Blackfoot is no mere collection of facts, but something that one grows towards. Knowledge, like a song, is a living being, a being with which one can come into relationship. Coming to knowing is an active dialogue with nature, with the rocks, plants, and animals. As one Blackfoot put it, the plants and animals are our microscopes and laboratories. And here, do compare what we've gone through further with fractality, where in the smallest and inside yourself, the knowledge is acting. It is in the connection between two fractalities that everything is coming to presence, presencing. A lesson we learn from Terry Marks Charlotte, also a person very interested in Indian languages. We lost our connection to the real world. We pass in the very life world without connecting to it. Therefore, our knowledge becomes stale, not disclosed, but closed, shut off, disjunct, and disparate. It does not enrich you. I was so many times informed myself when entering into the university that true knowledge were not in this earth or in the university any longer. That was the complete domination of the objective mood, or Stimmung, which is a, so to say, a magnification. I see a mug brought to its very extreme. Knowledge is relationship, and relationships brings with it responsibility responsibilities and obligations. Thus, it has been put to me that when Western science performs an experiment, it is actually conversing with nature, and in this process, telling nature about ourselves. And as is shown in the Alice and Bob experiment, constructed by Wegener, it also tells us a great deal about ourselves. And the idea that a stale constructed out there world is not real. What is real is me participating in the movement. I would call that the moving map in the head, or the map in the head. Are we willing to take responsibility for what we say? Each action in the laboratory must be balanced by its reaction somewhere else in the world. When we create order in one place, we give birth to disorder in another. This is, of course, essential in chaos theory. And I also think of that, the butterfly effect. That could be the pipe we spoke about earlier, where a little action gives rise to changes in natures that are immense. And it's also about going the wrong way, as Susie Frobel and Blake pointed out. This is a quote here, the last paragraph before the subtitle Healing. While Newtonian science studies particular instances in hope of generalizing into law of nature unity within multiplicity, Goethe studied the multiplicity that arises out of unity. Goethe's notion of the archetype of all plants resonates with indigenous concepts of the guardians or keepers of plants and animals. By carrying a piece of bone, a Blackfoot comes into direct contact with the guardian or keeper of the buffalo. There's one word here, connectedness. The great philosopher of science, Paul Feyerabend, often pointed out that generalizing and universalizing from many instances not only takes away the uniqueness of the singular, but also eradicate plurality. And that is also something that has been resounding in the works of Ian McGilchrist, where he shows that, often using Heraclitus, that plurality can only come out of singularity. It is extraordinarily close to fractal iteration, where the whole is always depicted in the small constituents. I have a plant here, but it is most easily demonstrated with a fern, where the whole build-up structure, also in this plant, the whole build-up structure is an iteration of the wholeness. So within the very smallest part of the plant, the wholeness is already there. And we know that is what builds up the tensegrity, or the force, the balance, the stability of the structure. And that is healing for the body as well. Those are often called spirals in our system, using the myofascia to strengthen our system. Whereas the idea of we all being composed of parts, like fingers or living cells put together to make up hands, that in itself causes imbalance and lack of stability. So it's easy to see how the Newtonian also goes into the body. Even there it has cast its shadow and made for the slouch postures and the epidemic case of strain injuries and autoimmune diseases. The latter also especially pointed out by Ian McGilchrist. I think it's fitting to go to the next paragraph called Healing, a very important feature in modern man, where we are so long from both health and wholeness. plants have the power to heal. For the Blackfoot, the nature of their action cannot be reduced simply to chemical substances or molecules. Healing involves a relationship to the entire plant, and this includes its power, energy, spirit, or in Goethe's terms, its archetype. One can perhaps understand this by analogy to the sacred sculpture of, for example, India. Within a ceremony, these objects act as windows into the world of the sacred, yet are at the same time no more than stone, clay, and pigment. Their action is that of a diagram or map of the pattern of the sacred. One comes into relationship with the numinous, though the catalectic action of the icon. I think it should be through the catalytic action of the icon. In a similar way, the plant and its associated chemicals open into a larger world of energies and healing powers. We used to firmly have an understanding that bread and wine turned into the flesh and blood of Christ, something that has dissipated during the centuries. This is a way of approaching the sacred. And the idea of atomism says, no, it remains bread. No, it is still having the disjunct molecules of wine. That ceremony losing is forced to open a window to the sacred, to the greater, to the connectivity. There is actually a related metaphor in Western science. A molecule is not so much an object, but a dynamical pattern. At the quantum level, it is a pattern of energies which extend into the ground state of the entire cosmos. Absorbed into the body, this dynamic energy pattern provokes a range of transformations of the body's biochemical activities. The scientific analogy can only go so far, since Western science continues to fragment matter from ethical values, consciousness, and spirit. And here are many comments possible. Within chemistry, it does not really make sense to speak of individual observations of atoms or molecules. A substance like, for instance, arsenic is more closer to the occurrence of possibilities. And I would say this is how we actually use the words in everyday manner. We have just forgotten that we are still part of the world, and we fool ourselves with this distancing, closing off knowledge, and making our bodies unhealthy, less balanced. So I do like that, and I will repeat it. A molecule is not so much an object, but a dynamical pattern. And I think that could definitely be compared to words. And in that case, I mean like seeing the word as monosemic. Of course, an atom is an introduction of only one place and one meaning. Something that fell with quantum mechanics in 1927. My second comment here, so there's a lot of comments, but there's a lot opening up here. Ian McGilchrist, in his seminal and the largest book since the Bible, in the matter of things, he showed the disjunction or separation or the chiasm between matter and spirit, and matter and morals, ethical values, is what rids us of a direction and rids us of our, I would say, given right to knowledge, to understanding. Ian McGilchrist, and I should not compare myself to him, but we do share one thing. We both got widely disappointed when we tried to seek knowledge within the modern institutions. We were given just sand and water when we needed bread and sustenance for our thinking to grow. I think that comes from seeing matter with unethical eyes. It is all an attitude, Ian McGilchrist says, or rather different forms of attention. Go a little bit into language, which is the next subtitle. Oh.
Let's see how many minutes. 1 hour and 54 already, so you have to summarize now.
Okay.
1 hour 54.
Well, I will continue with the enlarging conclusion in the next, but I hope Kalle get a chance to say something. I just shortly say it rises the hair on my arm. It's incredibly invigorating to see how language as a direct perceivable feature of reality can actually do quantum mechanics, so to speak. And to see how it starts gives us a third level of approaching what Heidegger and Wittgenstein earlier went through, but with different names. And in a way, it is so obvious when you think of it. I see, where see is not even important. It is like this exists without the seeing. There is an example there which is rather good, and a flashing light. In all American Indian language, you just say flashing. What role does the light take? It doesn't have any role. Compare that to the atom. And now I will give a chance for poor Kalle here to have a word. Give him the microphone.
So Young said that synchronicity is an acausal connective principle. I don't know if we would agree that synchronicity is acausal. That is not causal. That is a long discussion. And I liked what you said about the molecules. Where do we have it? Yes. 568. A molecule is not so much an object, but a dynamic pattern. True. So true about randomness as well. Thank you so much, Hans. I will not add anything since we have like 3 minutes time.
Sorry about taking up all the time. I will continue on it until it's finished. I'm in a flux now, I think. just give some example here, and this is also pertinent for our meeting tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that our friend will speak this
About
language.
Algonquian languages.
Yes, it's a language family. In Algonquian languages, you and me are not separate words. They are notions of equal value. Nouns are not needed to make complete or grammatical sentences either. In English, and there we have it, if we see a flashing in the distance, we say something like the light flashed. Think of it hardly, it does not really make sense. You can say that the objects in our language and in our thinking has gotten a transcendental role. And of course we can see how it plays into classical mechanics. But it doesn't make sense. The flashing, because they just say flashing, is the only thing that you can perceive. Nothing else. And it's also the only important thing to understand it. Light doesn't add anything. It's a supplement, to use a Derridian term, and he shows a supplement can have a parasitic role in the end, because it takes away the wholeness. And in the end, it will be like a smoking habit or dressing too much when it's too warm. It will be a burden. And that burden is inherent almost in Western languages. But I would say it is not inescapable, which this so hopefully shows with the Blackfoot language. Well, I think it's going to end pretty soon. I say thank you very much and have a very pleasant afternoon.